There's some pretty exciting news for the Airbus A350. Boeing is finally returning to China, and British Airways keen on launching new routes. Want to begin with Boeing expecting to recommence delivery of new commercial aircraft to China this month. A move by the American plane maker follows the lifting of a ban by China, which was initially imposed in the second week of May. Boy, does time fly. Boeing's ability to recommence aircraft deliveries to this location is crucial, as it ensures output rates can continue at the intended rate, and contract negotiations do not need to commence over finding a new home for these jets. While many airlines had already lined up and expressed their interest in taking on the prospective white-tail planes, the complexity involved would have come at the wrong time for the plane maker that has been hell-bent on rebuilding and restoring trust among all. For Chinese operators such as China Southern, which have signed previous deals for new Boeing aircraft, lifting the ban is essential for their renewal and growth ambitions. China Southern initially led the headlines when it rejected the delivery of a 787 Dreamliner. All remaining parties would then follow. Now, planes can begin being delivered again this month. For Boeing to now confirm that the recommencement of deliveries to Chinese airline customers will occur, there has to have been a reason for suspension, and it was a pretty hefty one. The major decision had no time frame for resolution, but it sent certainly shockwaves right around the world, raising fears about how long would the ban last, what would the true impact of it be. Driven by this decision, aircraft already destined for customers in China at the time of the ban, well, they were forced to return to the United States, in maybe one of your more weirder flight paths. Despite these planes, at the end of the day, being fully ready to be delivered to their end customers, the handoff was unable to be facilitated, and these units were really placed into a state of uncertainty. China imposed the ban because it felt the terms being placed on itself by the United States were simply ridiculous, which largely centered on the persistent threat of the implementation of tariffs on goods. Essentially, as a retaliation act to the terms that had been put forward, it began looking to the US-based companies to cease trading with them or make their life all the more difficult. Boeing, an American plane manufacturer that produces aircraft for customers and naturally in China, was then just added to a long list of companies that were unable to execute the transfer of goods. However, deliveries getting the all clear to recommence is a massive success for all parties, who would just prefer calm trading to occur, both recognizing the importance in their various businesses and for the economy. Ultimately, given the continued political uncertainties, just because a resolution has been found now doesn't mean it will remain in place. Things can change at a moment's notice, and everyone needs to be prepared for this. Over to the next story, and IndiGo has confirmed that it will double its order for the A350 as part of a significant growth plan being undertaken at the Indian company. The latest purchase sees IndiGo sign for 30 more of the popular A350-900s, bringing the total to 60, a signal of intent to the competitors not just within its own home country, but also international ones about their direction. The firm aircraft order will enable what is currently a low-cost company to increase its market share and become more of a threat on your long-haul routes. However, the deal shouldn't come as a shock. IndiGo had previously signed for the A350, and while at that time it was an order for 30 firm units, it hinted it would look to increase that commitment, especially thanks to the many options that were included in the deal. That point has arrived. Labelled as a strategic move, IndiGo believes it is perfectly positioned to grow in the coming years and expand further than ever before, with a lot of market share that can be claimed. The Indian carrier is going to compete with companies such as Air India, which are currently undergoing a rebuilding process. Despite this rebuild, the significant increase in demand cannot be claimed solely by one airline. The latest purchase is a step in the right direction if IndiGo wants to achieve its growth ambition, but by no means is the additional commitment an overnight decision or process. The Indian company has already been closely working with the likes of Turkish Airlines and Norse Atlantic to help them gain a head start on international operations. While these acquisition efforts on a lease have included the 777 and 787, they have not been solely driven by the ambition to launch international services with high-capacity jets, but also to combat the groundings of their single-aisle fleet. With that being said, the wide-body planes have enabled the airline to gain experience with international services as it prepares for the eventual acquisition of the 350, which will form the backbone of its international flying for the long term. IndiGo believes that the A350 will usher in a new era, with the prospect of serving many international destinations and seeing revenue, passenger numbers, employee figures, and more grow dramatically in a relatively short period. The A350 is now just part of a new era, but so are orders for single-aisle Airbus aircraft, which will not only aid renewal, but also drive growth across short to medium-haul routes that require efficient flying. Over to the final story, and that's going to sit with British Airways. British Airways is hopeful that expansion will be on the cards soon, with an enhanced focus on developing service to India. The airline's chairman and CEO Sean Doyle expressed that the trade agreement between the UK and India is something that can be built upon, with passenger and freight flying to grow. British Airways already serves several cities in India every single week, including Hyderabad, Chennai, Bengaluru, Delhi, and Mumbai, with the latter two being most frequently served cities. However, British Airways is also aware of how important the Indian market has become for the company over the last couple of years alone, and an increase in flying is pivotal in maintaining this. Adjustments are already being made to its services bound for India by the end of this year, but more are expected as the untapped potential becomes of great interest. The country really has experienced huge amounts of growth towards international markets over recent years, and British Airways now recognises that India actually represents its second most important market outside of its existing transatlantic flying. This is not a shock, it's a trend that has also been observed by its competitor Virgin Atlantic, who confirmed the same thing. As a result of this, there is an increased emphasis on making sure that the services offered are sufficient and that growth continues to be a focus to avoid losing market share to competitor airlines. British Airways also recognises that with competitor airlines from Europe, there is further development in India itself as more companies seek to transition from short-haul services to also international flying in a bid to fend off market share being taken out by airlines that are outside of their home country. Ultimately, the importance of this opportunity is crucial given the IATA general meeting that took place in India just over the last week and a half, with Sean Doyle reaffirming that this to them is an opportunity that is a once in a generation. They must play their cards correctly. The comments thanks to Sean Doyle speaking exclusively with the Press Trust of India. For British Airways, the last couple of years have presented challenges, but that doesn't mean that they haven't tried to still spread their wings into new and emerging markets. In arguably one of its biggest challenges, if we're just strictly looking at the fleet, well, it's surrounded the supply chain crisis with Rolls-Royce. Its 787 family has spent a prolonged period not functioning as really initially intended, with, at any given point, many planes on the ground. For example, at the time of recording, you've got 4 787-8s parked, 1 lone 787-9, and 3 787-10s. These figures are always changing, and one of the biggest struggles for British Airways is the uncertainty on when engine complications will occur and when they will conclude. This could range from concerns about inspections, maintenance, and even just the acquisition of spare parts. It makes planning really challenging. In the worst case scenario, we saw British Airways suspend certain routes served by the 787 due to an inability to fly their aircraft here adequately. Keen to hear your take on the stories in today's recap down below. Thanks for watching, take care, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.